Do protests affect change, or are they just for drawing attention? It's a very loaded question, and there's no one size fit all answer. So many protests happen in so many places for so many different causes. And of course, often you'll have some that are real, motivated by really altruistic efforts that lead to action. And sometimes they really just, yeah, to draw attention and are wasteful in terms of time and effort. Now, a good protest isn't just something that you support or not support. I think it really comes down to one, who is organizing it, and two, the size, or even, and three, the type of issue. Now, let's consider, first of all, the motive, right? Someone with a very active political agenda to move something forward might just be creating this protest to, yeah, incite conflict, right? Protests are often a way to divide people, and so if it has poor motivations, then often it's just to draw media propaganda and cause conflict. The second thing is the size, either of the protest or of the issue. Now, consider a protest like, with against George Floyd. That's a very meaningful protest inspired by the mistreat of a man by a police officer. Now that led to real action, right, with the police officers and those involved being jailed, I believe, and changes in how police in America treat people. That's motivated by a good reason. Now, but it's not always like that, right? If you have a very small issue, protests might not be helpful, right? Because with you have to look at why a protest is started. Like I said, the motive. Now, is the motive just to simply, for the fun of it, for the sake of it, or is there a reasonable actionable? So I think that when you look at a protest, whether to join or not join it, or support or not support it, you have to see, okay, is there a list of measured change that the protest wants to accomplish, right? Because if there isn't, then, well, who's going to help fix it? Just going around shouting and amplifying the problem isn't going to help unless there are measured steps like, hey, okay, we want to investigate the police officer who did it wrong. We want new changes, new policies in the whatever constitution. Then that's a more reasonable, I think, reason to support a protest that can actually be helpful. Because let's be real, protests can be very wasteful. They often lead to large closures in roads and work, and they really stop activity in that general area. And in addition to it, they're very loud. So I think they can be very wasteful in terms of time, energy, and even to the surrounding areas. So a protest that doesn't have those measurables might not be considered helpful. Other protests are not even motivated by the people who want change. Sometimes they're just done by lobbyists, right? Big corporations, very wealthy people, pay money so that protests can happen to resist or support a policy change that ultimately just helps them. And that this is usually in a financial or political way. So it's very difficult to discern whether a protest is true and genuine or whether it's for suspicious reasons. And like I said earlier, looking at the motive and whether there's actually measurable change is very helpful.